Welcome to this session on knowledge increasing diversity in KM, stories from global community of practice, presented by Sarah Cummings and Gladys Kemboi. They're joining us here from respectively the Netherlands and Kenya. So quite international today. We have a few from outside of Melbourne as well today. So it's good to see and good to hear. So just a little bit quick on the speakers and then we'll get into it. So Sarah Cummings is a PhD, is a researcher focusing on the private sector and knowledge in international development at Wageningen University Research in the Netherlands. Her studies falls into the fields of development studies, knowledge management for development, and transdisciplinary research. She's the editor-in-chief of the Knowledge Management for Development journal. Along her, we have Gladys Kemboi, who is based in Nairobi, Kenya. She's a seasoned knowledge manager and international knowledge broker with solid working experience in international development sector, leading law firms and academia, and the East African region. She has won multiple awards, most influential knowledge manager ambassador in Kenya, and Mama Africa Knowledge Management Guru. With that, I'll share my the screen show or the slideshow we have, and then I'll let Sarah and Gladys take over from here. All right, Gladys and Sarah.
I'm going to start actually. Could you maybe go back to the first slide, Simon, if that's okay? No, that's the second one.
Sorry,
yeah, that's great. Anyway, really fantastic that Gladys and I can be with you today. We've been really looking forward to it. And we're going to be talking about the community of practice we're both a member of, and other people in this group are also a member of it. I think, I know Bruce is, but also I think Arthur is too. It's really great for me to be sharing this platform with Gladys, who is, well, you know from the introduction that she's an incredibly dynamic person. She recently joined the core group, the sort of management team of KM4Dev, and she's just absolutely fantastic. And we're really, really happy to have her there. She's such a champion. So this is really great. And some of you may already know about Gladys from the article about her, more than one article in Real KM magazine. And we're really, really great fans of Real KM, I just wanted to say. And I think last time you had a talk by Andreas Brandner, and we both work, both Gladys and I work closely with Andreas in the Knowledge for Development Partnership. And if you see, you can see our Twitter handles on the screen. So if you follow us, we'll follow you. And if you do if you are tweeting about this session, it would be great if you could also note KM4Dev, because that will be the link to the members of the community of practice. Could you, now the next screen, please, Simon? Okay, so this is the overview of the evening. So we've had the networking, and we're going to have the program is a little bit an introduction to KM4Dev, what we've been doing. Then we're going to be talking about some stories of mentorship and change. And then we're going to be talking about KM4Dev and the decolonisation of knowledge. And then we're going to go into breakout groups. We have a couple of questions for you to discuss. And then we'll be back in the plenary and then wrap up and go into the informal conversations after that. So that's a bit the outline, but obviously we're very happy to be flexible, longer breakout room, shorter, depends how it all works out. Anyway, next slide, please, Simon, thanks. Okay, so this is a part one. We're going to be introducing you to KM4Dev, which is a community of practice, which is actually slightly younger than your one, because I think you started in the late 90s, and we started in the year 2000, and going strong still, and maybe even at the moment stronger than we've ever been. Next slide, please. So yeah, so KM4Dev started 20 years ago, and last year we had lots of celebrations. And I've been a member of KM4Dev really quite close to the start, and it's actually really shaped my professional life, really, probably as being a member of this community. It may have done the same to you, where, you know, quite often when I've had periods when I've been a consultant where I've been just working on my own with my laptop, and KM4Dev were always my friends with advice or having interesting discussions. So we have, you know, face-to-face meeting, but also a lot of online meetings. And certainly recently, and I think also, you know, KM4Dev is really at the junction of the field of knowledge management and development studies. So we've always really worked, you know, with with people all over the world. And I think in a way, as we're going to be talking about today, that's happening even more. So next slide, please. Okay, so here you can see the sort of KM4Dev journey. Started 20 years ago with a focus on international development, and like the members tend to be quite a lot of them working in the UN organizations, like some of you have done, but also NGOs and think tanks, researchers, practitioners, consultants. And here you can see our journey, the River of Life that we did some years ago, looking at all the different phases. It's in a way, it's probably, I don't know if it's the same with your community, but it's the core group is a group of volunteers. So we also none of us had a paid appointment, or in fact the community itself is really quite informal. We don't actually have a formal center, but we hold regular meetings, and we've started doing things like having one of the good things about now being online is that we also have monthly get-togethers, which looking a bit more like this meeting, with the opportunity also to chat and network as well. And next slide, please. So we have rather a lot of different platforms. Actually quite confusing. It is also like not just to our members sometimes, but also for us. We have a website, KM4Dev.org, which is on a Ning, and where we have more than 5,000 members, where people, you know, share blogs or photographs and videos. There's not that much discussion on there, but because we have another platform for that. But we also have a wiki, which is where we try and document the community's knowledge, and that can be also, that is sometimes that goes up and down a bit, really. But you know, I think in the past it was very everything was very clearly documented, like meetings and things like that. We have online communities, so we have the main discussion group, which is on an IO group, D-Groups IO, which this has been going on, really. The online discussions have been going on since the year 2000, but we've migrated a couple of times, and now we're at a new platform which is being hosted by the D-Groups Foundation. I don't know if any of you come across that, but it's a group of development organizations which have a common platform. We do lots of different activities. So we have face-to-face events in the past. Now they're all online, obviously. We have different sorts of initiatives, like methods and tools, where we've developed a toolkit, a knowledge sharing toolkit. And about, I think 2005, I was sitting at work one day and I was thinking, okay, what do I want to do with my life? And so I started the KM4Dev journal with a group of colleagues, which we also do as volunteers, and that also is sometimes a bit of a sort of nighttime job for me, but we've really been publishing about 2 issues a year since 2005. And I think the community, but also, you know, things like the journal. So this has been a sort of new field, knowledge management for development. It's a new field, which came up from about the year 2000 when the World Bank started with its World Development Report about knowledge being like light, traveling the world without anything to stop it and how it can transform development. I think that's when it all really started. And the journal has been really involved in documenting this. And it has its feet, you know, in the development studies, but also in the knowledge management field. And actually it's been, you know, it's been voted one of the top 20 journals in the field of knowledge management quite regularly. I think there's this, I can't remember the name of the articles anymore, but they do regularities. I can't quite understand how that happens. But we have communities in different languages. We hold meetings in different languages. You know, we do loads of different things. And we also have a social media presence. So we're doing stuff on Twitter, on YouTube. And one of the most interesting things that we've been doing, and Gladys will be talking about it next, is the knowledge cafes. So this week, tomorrow we'll be having our 19th knowledge cafe. And, you know, this has been one of the horrible benefits of COVID, that we've gone online, but it makes it much easier for people to engage. And we'll be talking about that in a minute. I hope, can you hear them? Can you hear me fairly clearly? There's a horrible background noise, yeah?
We can hear you.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, it's a horrible background noise because there's workmen behind me and nothing I can do about it really. Okay, next slide, please. And I'm going to hand over to Gladys for this slide. Gladys.
Thank you so much, Sarah. So I'm going to take us through the KM4Dev diversity. And in KM4Dev, we have members from different continents, which, as we are seeing in the statistics, we have members from Africa, North America, Europe, Asia, Central America, Middle East, South America, and Australia. And looking at these, it's the representation of the various KM4Dev knowledge cafes that we have had. And if we look at the statistics, the highest knowledge cafe attendance is around 283 members, where based on various topics that we have had before. So we have had knowledge cafes like this year, discovering the World Bank communities of practice, where we had the World Bank team taking us through, including Bruce, who is here with us today. There's been also one of the hot topic on decolonization of knowledge, which is an action plan for the KM4Dev. So we have had for the various diverse groups, and also including the Asia, Australia, and the Middle East, so that we can accommodate them in terms of the time zones. There's also another one where we had decolonization of the knowledge cafe again, where it was an action plan for the KM4Dev. And in the next slide, we'll be taking you through the action plan for the individual members, and also the KM4Dev action plan. There's also knowledge cafe on the knowledge retention as a systems thinking, and then bringing peer assisted online, where we can meet together. And also there's the value creation for communities and networks. And through these ideas of decolonizing of knowledge, we have seen Africa being highly represented. As you have seen, we are leading at 43% with 69 highly representation. This is really amazing statistics. So, and since 2021, we have had, since when KM4Dev began, we have seen the number keeps on increasing about the membership through the contribution of these various knowledge cafes. And we have seen that we have more than 5,000 plus members, and we keep on growing after every knowledge cafe. Kindly take us to the next slide. So in this slide, we are going to discuss about the adding value to members, partners, communities through various online collaborations and dialogue. And it is really inspiring because we have had members through Knowledge for DP, where Andreas was presenting at the time. We have also had the team with Real Care Magazine, where we have been sharing together what we are doing in various knowledge cafes and then promoting these ideas together as a team. And also there's quite a lot of things that we do, even in terms of peer support, these engaging through various ideas of building inclusion and also impact. There's learning, where we learn from experience through capitalization, which has helped us to improve what we did, but also learning about from others what they are doing. And we were able to measure the kind of the impact that there's various in the organizations where we are working, the communities where we are representing as the KM4Dev members. And also we have seen where that kind of, the value of inclusion and also being part of a community where you feel like, yeah, this is like a home to me. And when we come together as the people, we share knowledge and collaborate, and also we solve the complex problems in the development sector here. So I would like to ask Simon, kindly take us to the next slide. So in this slide, we are going to share about delivering value. As we have seen, the community, KM4Dev community, is really, it has strengthened us together as a communities, and we have seen the representation of various diverse communities across the globe. And we feel that, yeah, this is a community where it has become a home to various KM practitioners across the globe. There's so much that we can share, we copy on and helping one another, including various mentorship programs that we have, which we'll be sharing in the next slide. And also we have responding to various interest needs, where we usually share this through KM4Dev discussion group. When someone has a challenge, he or she shares, and the community is able to respond and provide solutions. And then there's also ownership, participation, and also contribution. And we have seen this through our KM4Dev knowledge cafes. And we are so grateful. We have seen even various communities across the globe being part of, and their contributions are highly appreciated. And we have seen being, this contributes to part of the KM4Dev decolonization of knowledge. There's also representation and engagement, where we have seen both members from the global north and the global south, which is highly represented. And there's quite a lot of the engagement, which it has led to a higher impact in the community. There's also more inclusive, and I'm so grateful about this, where we are now having our KM4Dev Youth Leadership Forum, where the young people are being involved in various KM4Dev activities, and also in various roles at the KM4Dev core group leadership team, where we have members from both the global north and the global south being represented. And then we have the after action reviews, which has really helped us to improve our knowledge cafes working group. And also it has guided us after every knowledge cafe that we have, we go back to, as the members, to review our AAR, and then we see what can we improve more on, what went well. And this helped us also in organizing for the next knowledge cafe. Next slide, please.
Sorry, can I ask a question before you continue, Gladys?
Yes, Brad.
Oh, thanks. So I may have missed this, but you've mentioned, you both here have mentioned decolonize knowledge, and I'm still not sure what that means and how the activities of KM4Dev is helping to do that, and what's the context of decolonizing knowledge. I just need a bit more context to be able to put the pieces together. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Pratia. We'll have this one about it in the next slide, yeah, which Sarah will be taking us through in line with the action plans that we have done as a KM4Dev. So this one shows the various activities that we have had at KM4Dev, and you can see the graph, how it goes higher, based on the various knowledge cafes that we have had. From, like, if you see from May, the graph shows that, yeah, the number keeps on increasing every month whenever we have our knowledge cafes. And yeah, so the one that had the highest one was on the value of the creation for communities networks, where we had the teams from the World Bank Group sharing with us, and also that one for the decolonization of knowledge, which was really the hot topic on addressing the uncomfortable truths and also decolonizing knowledge in various sectors. Yeah. So kindly take us to the next slide. So now I'd like us to ask a question to all of us. Perhaps like maybe the KMLF could be happy to share with us if this is similar to other communities of which you are a member, or if what we are doing at KM4Dev is quite similar to what you are doing at KMLF. Kindly, let's have 1 or 2 minutes. And then we'll move to the next slide. Feel free, you can share through the chat, or you can raise a hand.
Yeah, I think sharing chat is good, Gladys. I think one of the comments I would like to say with KMLF is that we're not as focused as an end goal as you have. Like, we're not as a clear organization. We're more about bringing in interesting speakers that have done something interesting in the field of knowledge management and sharing that story among our community. That's how we have operated in the past, and that's how I think we operate, because we come from a myriad of industries, both from financial services to development as well, through to academia. So it's a bit of. Cesar, you raised your hand. Do you want to contribute to something?
I have a question, but I was having issues with the Zoom. So when you're ready, if I can have a moment to ask a question, please. Thank you.
Yeah. I'll let that up to, if you're happy to take a question from Cesar now, or we can continue. I think, yes. So.
Can I?
Yeah.
Thank you. So my question is, I know we spoke about communities of practices and then KM4Dev and then D groups. So just to clarify that I understand, are we saying KM4Dev is a community of practice, hence it has its distinct social media site? Or are you saying KM4Dev is a community of practice, and under the umbrella of KM4Dev, you have other additional activities such as Twitter and, you know, face-to-face meetings, etc. So I just wanted to have that understanding, please. Thank you.
Shall I respond to that, Gladys? Yes. So
yes, Sarah.
We're a community of practice in the sense that we have our domain, which is knowledge management for development, and the community, and also these practices. And the social media things we do are really just to share knowledge and inform each other what everybody's doing. Does that answer your question? And D groups is, have you come across D groups before?
I've used D groups. But the question is, if I think of KM4Dev, do I think of yourself and Gladys, or do I think of a technology, a platform to actually go log in and sort of share like a Web 2.0 environment?
Okay, so what you think is people like us, and we're using a Web 2.0 environment to share knowledge, yeah. So it's not a platform, and we use one of the problems about talking about KM4Dev, it's so much like part of my DNA. I almost can't, so much of it I take for granted. But indeed, so it's about people, and we're using all of these different platforms, probably too many, to be honest. We're in the middle of sort of looking at that to share knowledge in different ways with different communities, other communities, but among ourselves as well. Is that clear enough?
It has. Thank you so much.
I'll just throw one comment in, because I've been popping in and out of KM4Dev for a long time, more than a decade. And of course, KMLF has been here in this form for actually 21 years. We started at 22, we started in 1998, but we're a more informal sharing community, whereas KM4Dev is very much an action orientated, and it's producing products and services in a not-for-profit way. So it's your experiences. The question you asked previously, I think you're a really shining example of, you know, that taking it to the next level beyond what a lot of our communities do. And if you look at structures of, I would say network is loosely connected people or groups who connect on a ongoing basis or periodic basis. Communities are a collective of people with a common view, and then you've got teams within that. You definitely are the community and the team, and you network. Like, I know that members of yours go out to, you know, things like SIKM leaders with Stan Garfield, and here you're here with KM4Dev. So you're actually represented in all three layers extremely well, and that's the magic, I think, that is KM4Dev, and we thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
I had a query, Gladys and Sarah. As far as your funding is concerned, so you mentioned that you're volunteers. How does the group get funded to sort of put on the activities that it does?
Shall I field that one too, Gladys? And maybe you can talk
Sarah.
more about the recent experience. So we have had periods where right at the beginning the community was started by an organisation, but and we have had periods where there have been small grants to do bits of research, but actually the only funding really we have is through donations, and it's quite a small level, and they pay for our platforms, which isn't a load of money. And so everything else is done by volunteers, everything. Like, it's all based on voluntary contributions. So like the knowledge cafes, you know, everybody who's involved is doing it like in their spare time or in the margins of their work. And in that sense, it's also like, but it's something that we also really get a lot of value from, in the sense that, like, you know, we found out how to run good online meetings and to evaluate them and try and improve them. And certainly like this whole online thing has been really great for all of us, because we've all taken on a lot of new roles in doing that. And I think the sessions we've done have been really interesting and very interactive. So we've definitely learned by that, but it's all everything is voluntary, even like the journal is voluntary, for example. And did you want to add something, Gladys?
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, team, for the great session. So I would like to hand over to Sarah to take us to the next session about our experience with mentoring. Welcome, Sarah.
Okay, thank you. So, and we're now going to talk about what we do in terms of mentoring, and this is really, in lots of ways, been really developed quite informally. And I think there were now efforts led by Gladys to make it more formal. Gladys, do you want? Okay, so here's a nice slide of all the different things we're doing. So we're providing advice to people, so peer support. We're doing coaching quite informally, like quite a lot of the older members of the team are coaching other members of the core group, but also in terms of their professional life as well. Maybe the next slide, please. Okay, over to Gladys.
Thank you, Sarah. So I would like to, I'm going to share about one of the success stories on mentoring. And members of the KM4Dev, I remember way back in 2017, where it was the first time hearing about KM4Dev and here in Kenya, especially those who are in the student community when I was doing my master's. And one of the members of KM4Dev shared with us about, because he wanted to understand more about KM in the development sector. And a member of KM4Dev shared with us, who is part of the core group team, Tony shared with us about KM4Dev, and we had our first knowledge cafe. And during that moment, it has really had a higher impact, because more young people are now involved in various activities on knowledge management in the development sector. And at the same time, meeting with Sarah, who has been my mentor, has really helped me to tap a lot of knowledge and understand even through various activities at KM4Dev where I'm involved. And this has really other creating back in Africa. As you have seen in our statistics about the Athenians, most of them, they are Africans. And because of the impact, where like now we are engaging a lot in terms of the mentoring. And we have seen also in various, through KM4Dev, the learnings and the lessons learned that we're learning from the KM4Dev, we go back to apply it here locally in various African countries. And we have seen various knowledge caviars in like KM4Dev is giving birth to many more babies in Africa. And we really appreciate one of them, we have had a Africa KM community where we discuss challenges that is facing us as Africans and how we can also mentor and nurture other young Africans and practitioners who are passionate about knowledge management, but they don't know where to start. And like after mentoring them, we ask them to join our KM4Dev. And through this, participating in various KM4Dev activities like the KM4Dev knowledge caviars, being the research community core group, and also in the leadership core group of the KM4Dev, and also participating through KM4Dev channels where people from the global south, we are still less represented, especially on research. And KM4Dev has given us a platform where it is nurturing us and also mentoring us, because we don't have such an opportunities, especially in Africa. And we are so grateful for the KM4Dev. And kindly take us through the next slide. We'll be sharing about the KM4Dev Youth Leadership Forum. This is really an amazing platform for the young people across the globe, from both the global north and the global south, where young people have the opportunity to showcase the innovations and the talents that they have, and also contribute at the KM4Dev, where they engage in various activities. And we first had our knowledge cafe for the young KM4Dev Youth Leadership Forum on Hakaste, where we had over 179 members who attended, and majority of them, we had a representation from various universities. And it was so amazing, like the outcomes was that there was a kind of a lot of feedback, where even this the leadership from various universities was saying, wow, this is an amazing forum where we need to take it to our universities, enough innovations, knowledge management innovations for the young people. As you have seen, we have had several attendants, and we have, the one was leading with Kenya, we had 108 participants, and also we had number 2, France. Number 3, we had Uganda, we had India, Sudan, number 5, number 6, United States, number 7, Zimbabwe, 8, Italy, number 9, Mexico, and also number 10, we had Malaysia following. So you have seen how the kind of the impact this KM4Dev Youth Leadership Forum has in various countries. So like the future belongs to the youth, and we are so grateful for the KM4Dev for these opportunities, and also nurturing us, the young people, to go back to our communities and also impact in terms of strengthening and contributing towards our sustainable development goals. So in October, we will be launching our KM4Dev Youth Leadership Forum, where we have the community members participating and also contributing to our youth charter. So kindly take us to the next slide.
Is it okay if we take this in our breakout room, just for time-wise? So we go to part 3, which is the decolonization that Brad was raging about.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
Cesar, did you have a comment?
I have a question, if it's appropriate now, or I can wait.
It's okay. Yeah, you can.
Thank you. So Gladys, I noticed you picked up in the slide before, you said you're working across a number of African countries. So I picked up Kenya, Uganda, Zimbabwe, and I've been to Zimbabwe. I also picked up Sudan. But quite interestingly enough, I did not pick up any Francophone or French-speaking African countries. So out of curiosity, I was wondering whether as part of your KM4Dev Leadership Forum or other knowledge sharing sessions, how are you engaging or targeting, let's say engaging with the Arabic and French-speaking African nations, and if you can share some best practices, lessons learned, and if that's in scope for your work. But I'm curious to see how, you know, African practitioners with different language skills could add value or participate in this leadership forum. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Asisa. We have at KM4Dev, we have various representatives, like for the Frangos, for the French-speaking countries, we have Atsu from Togo, who is also part of the team that she is leading. And we've been very supportive, and also we have the Spanish group where they quite engage with the Spanish. So KM4Dev is very accommodative, and also that's why we are saying October we'll be launching the KM4Dev a Youth Leadership Forum Charter, where all these communities are being represented, and to accommodate those other countries. Like for the Hakaste Knowledge Cafe, we had the leading team was from the Africa and the Asian team because of the time zones, and that's why you're seeing the representatives are from those countries.
Maybe I can just add briefly as a more historic perspective, and that's that we have had for a long time a francophone community called SAGE, but that has migrated to the new platform, but it has been less active now, to be honest. But we have actually a couple of quite active French-speaking participants who actually participate in the discussions by using Google Translate. So they Google Translate the discussions, or you can do it for your browser, and then they answer and do it in translation. So that's quite clever. But we're also with the journal, we have periodically, people are allowed to submit papers in French and Spanish, and periodically we have a French language issue or a Spanish language issue. So we do try and involve the communities. Okay, so maybe if that's okay, Cesar, we'll go back
Absolutely.
to the.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, we'll go back to KM4Dev and the decolonization of knowledge. So what is decolonization of knowledge? So if you look at the sort of historical way that most of the, if you like, academic publications are done, for example, that many academics from the global south are not included. I mean, that is, to some extent, can be in some cases a language issue, but mostly it isn't. And this is very much related in KM4Dev. We also found that, also thought it's really important, the participation from the global south, particularly if you're in the field of international development, is really important. So I guess what we've tried to do is have a much more explicit, and this is really in the last few years, to be honest, a much more explicit approach to diversity, equality, and inclusivity. So more emphasis on a type of leadership which encourages people to be empowered, recognition of the sort of epistemic injustices where, for example, you know, well, there's two types, for example, there's hermeneutic injustice and testimonial injustice. And hermeneutical injustices, for example, where you're in the community where you live, you don't have the right tools for your own knowledge expression. And the testimonial injustice is where nobody is listening to you, either because you're a woman or you come from a particular, or because you're poor. Coloniality relates to the really entrenched patterns that we see in publications, but also which we almost take for granted, that we breathe, that we're trying to address. And these are quite often systems challenges. So you have a number of communities of practice and sort of systemic niches that are trying to address this by listening to more diverse voices, a greater source of different types of publications, and recognizing that these are things that we really need to address. And maybe I should add here that, like, one of the reasons I started the journal in 2005 is that I'd worked for Elsevier Science Publishers for some years before that, and you could really see that almost all the publications were coming from the global north. So one of the things that we did with the journal was we have a very diverse editorial board, and we have a really diverse groups of authors, and we initially, we do it slightly less now, but we had a peer support process and not a peer review process. So really for people who were less experienced in publishing. Maybe the next slide. Do you want to do this one, Gladys?
Thank you, Sarah. So now we look at the KM4Dev action plan on decolonization of knowledge. This one includes more inclusive by involving young people. There's also recognizing storytelling, where we hear stories from others, how they have contributed towards the decolonization of knowledge. There's also mentoring and KM4Dev declaration plan, where there was declaration based on individual, what can you do as an individual, and also what can you do as an organization towards decolonization of knowledge. And we have seen many organizations where members of the KM4Dev are being represented, addressing these issues on decolonization of knowledge through decolonizing the age. Others are participating through individual action plans, addressing various injustices happening in various communities where they are represented. And also we have the KM4Dev blog, where we contribute, or our members contribute by sharing the success stories on how they have done on decolonizing the knowledge. We also have the issue of the KM4Dev channel. So we are welcome. We are we'll be having our upcoming KM4Dev issue channel, which has been released recently, where you can contribute to participate through writing an article, which will be published. Yeah. Next slide. And also now, during various our KM4Dev knowledge surveys on decolonization of knowledge, part of the declaration was a member action plan on decolonization of knowledge. And this is what is shared there, is what members say they are going to do, like decolonizing the language, because most of the communities, they are not understanding about this, or even the production of knowledge that we have, it's so difficult for others to understand. So like take time to translate and also empower the communities what is all about this. And then also as community, we celebrate what we have, what kind of the knowledge and information that we have, and celebrate the other members who have done so well in addressing these issues on the decolonization of knowledge. And also sharing the outputs with the locals. Most of the local members, like, they were not aware, or even in the communities where we are, for instance, from the village where I'm coming from, there's still a huge knowledge gap, which the locals are not aware, and even they don't have even access to these opportunities. So as a member of the KM4Dev, it is my role to take this knowledge to the village and to see on how we can contribute towards sustainable development goals. And also being ambassadors, being loud and proud that, yeah, you're part of the KM4Dev member who is addressing these issues on decolonizing the knowledge. Sarah shared about the epistemic injustices. This is more we are the hot topic on the uncomfortable truths. And Gladys, as a member of the KM4Dev, I took an action. Like, there's a lot of injustices that are happening in our higher learning institutions, in the public universities in Kenya. And now I've become a champion through KM4Dev, where I am engaging with various university students, addressing the issues. There are a lot of injustices on even pride. There's a lot on sexual harassment, and there's no one who can speak on behalf of these students. Now we are empowering them and even creating safe knowledge spaces where they can open up. And also we come together with leadership universities. Like, some are not even aware that these things are happening, but students, they fear to go and share what they are going through. But we are grateful through the KM4Dev in empowering us on knowledge and information on how to cope with this. We have seen successful impact on various students, and this year it's so amazing to see many KMers from Kenya who will be graduating here. Kindly take us to the next slide. So, and now we are going to have a breakout rooms where we'll be sharing what is the relevance of the decolonization of knowledge or epistemic justice in your own context. Back to you,
Yes.
Sarah.
I'll just that's me. So I'll just allocate you all randomly. How many are we? We have 14, 12, great.
Is everybody quite clear what we're supposed to be talking about in the breakout rooms? And is everybody so reasonably happy with the two concepts, sort of decolonization knowledge, talking about that, but also the idea of epistemic justice that, you know, increasing. Yeah, you're all happy with that, great.
Oh, sorry, sorry, I'm a bit slow here.
Sarah, if you and Gladys end up in the same room, you might want to one of you migrate to the other one as the lead facilitators.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
When you randomly allocate, sometimes it works.
I think I got out of random and actually did it by, but I think I don't have all of them. You know what? I'm gonna do random.
Yeah. As a co-host, you can go to the other room. Just make Gladys a co-host. Actually, I can make Gladys a co-host in the background.
I think that should do. I hope I got everyone. Sorry, Deacon Alpha, I forgot to add you.
That's all right, mate. Don't worry. As long as Sarah and just check that Sarah and Gladys are in different. Great. All right. Good job. How are you, Dick?
I forgot to click you to one of them. Where did I put Sarah? I was just thinking where I put Sarah. You go into the same and then I'll join another one. That's all good.
Yep. Okay, mate.
All right. Welcome back, everyone.
I saw Gladys's background photo there very quickly. I like your photo there in the background, Gladys, with the suit on. That was very cool. As opposed to me being silly with filters before. But anyway.
Thank you.
I would add that, you know, knowledge is power is true, but and I think KM4Dev really demonstrates this. In my last book, I said knowledge is power when shared and socialized and applied. So, you know, knowledge can be powerful if it's applied, but it's just often as decolonization of knowledge, you know, it's used as a means of power and a means of, you know, sort of preventing other people having that, like IP laws, right? So, you know, it can work both ways.
All right. So thank you for joining us and have a great discussion. I think so if I can get one from each group, just quickly to summarize what was discussed in each breakout room, that would be great. And then we can pick it up from there. Usually we have a great conversation erupting from those themes that has been discussed in the breakout room. So I don't know if anyone from room 1 wants to start.
Well, were we in room 1? I don't know what room I was in.
I don't know. I lost track of who was. But Lynn, you can start with your room, I think.
Sure. Well, it was a very small room. It was very, very intimate and a good chat. I'm not sure how to summarize that. There are lots of challenges with decolonizing knowledge because of all the different barriers that can impact that. We discussed the challenges of low income versus higher income barriers, and those barriers could be those low income, high income barriers could not only just be about knowledge and access to knowledge, but they could also, again, be political, cultural, geographic, and all the other things that that Gladys mentioned previously. So we're having an interesting discussion about the different types of barriers and whether it's, is knowledge shared more easily through storytelling at a low income level versus access to technology at a high income level, and is one more valid than the other? So it was it was a bit of a mixture of conversations going on in there, but yeah, lots of barriers around making and using different language about how we described our high income, low income people as well. Yep. So that we weren't clarifying that by geography or previous presumptions of types of high income versus low income people, persons, places, all of the above.
Thank you for that. And if I can just quickly add, so we also reflected on technology as being the enabler as far as codifying the knowledge and storing and sharing. And this is where we sort of made the distinction to say, for example, in the African continent, when you have storytelling, then how is that codified, past and present? And with that, we also spoke about African, writers, for example, Chinua Achebe, and I was encouraging them to read The Arrow of God, for example. So it's quite interesting that as we sort of evolve in this, in the technological space, then what is the current status, and to Lynn's point, in low-income countries, and is that something, that can be addressed as part of this? And we also reflected on the political economy side of things, but that was just a whole holistic discussion.
Thank you. The next room, Brad, Pam, and Sarah. Who wants to say anything from you, Brad, Sarah, Pam?
So I was just in the midst of popping up a tweet. It was interesting. I think my experience in the room that was at a more personal level, and it was fascinating. Just trying to get an understanding of the decolonization of knowledge and what that means. And I think it took me back to growing up in South Africa in the 70s and 80s, and how that shapes one's sense of self and the narratives that brings up as well. So when we talk about sharing knowledge, I think for one of the things we spoke about out of my experience is that the understanding the exclusiveness of the systems that we have, that happens at an individual and at a group and at an intergroup level. So what we hear and the language that we use is sometimes not even conscious, and that often those unconscious biases and narratives happen on autopilot that we're not aware of. Because my narrative went into, because Sarah and Pam were talking a lot in the first few minutes, and I was like, what's going on here? We're talking about exclusivity within systems around sharing knowledge. I'm the only person of color in this group, and so far I haven't been asked a question. What's going on? And it was interesting, was I had to ask myself, is that my own bias based on my upbringing and what I've experienced? And how does that play out in the communities that I participate in? So there's a really fascinating introspection. And I do share this with Pam and Sarah, and they were very gracious in letting me talk in the group. So I think when we talk, it's not just systemic in terms of the global system, but we look at ourselves as a system of narratives and experiences and sense of self. I think that's an important starting point when we look at in our own community of practice. So yeah, and I know my kids are yelling in the background, so I'm going to put it on mute. So that Sarah and Pam, I'd love to hear your own experience of that as well.
No, that's all right. All right. Arthur, Bruce, Dick, and Vanessa.
Arthur, did you want to?
No, you're far away, Bruce. People listen to me too often, or not listen, but they hear me too often.
And I guess I've sort of written extensively on the decolonisation issue, and also partnered with KM4Dev in this regard. So yeah, sort of again wanting to give others a chance to express their views. So Dick or Vanessa, would you like to report on our group?
Yes, I think we talk about, as some other groups mentioned, there's barriers between people who want to access knowledge and share their knowledge, like, for example, language, the technology. For example, in some developing countries, there may be less access to internet or good quality of journal articles because of the access to educations and things like that. So there's some other barriers that's preventing or slow down the sharing of knowledge, and like different cultures, the use of language, and we mentioned a few things. So yeah, there's certainly some sort of injustice between more or less Western country. They dictate somehow, dictate some of the definition of knowledge or terminology that other people's or other like countries needs to follow. So there's certainly something that we need to break that down if we want to actually get a better share of knowledge between around the whole world.
All right, thanks, Dick. The last group, Amanda, Gladys, and Ricky.
We had a bit of a chat because, you know, I'd been in Kenya and Mombasa, and sort of going back and actually thinking about colonization, and the fact that what struck me in Mombasa was that the port which it sits on is sort of where the Arabs had come through as the sort of first colonizers there. And then the Portuguese, they built a massive port in the 1450s, came through, and then the English. And thinking about colonization and thinking about knowledge as well, you sort of think about, say, like with the English, you know, they built all these, you know, railways. They built up a rail network so that, you know, they could sort of, you know, exploit the land and everything else. But the knowledge of how to build those railway, you know, lines and everything, the engineering, that structural part was very much part of what was part of, you know, being colonial and being kept away from everybody else. So you think about that. And then we also had a bit of a chat about language itself, because if you thought, you know, and I was asking Gladys how she, you know, communicates with people in Kenya as well, because we're all talking about colonization and we're using English to talk about it, you know, and sort of how she, you know, reaches out to people on WhatsApp and stuff like that, and also the influence that social media has had on breaking down. You know, has it broken down and made it much easier to share knowledge as well? So whether that's another kind of lap over from that. So that's kind of what we were talking about.
Now, very
Ricky,
interesting.
did you have any?
Yeah,
and Ricky then went even further back and started talking about the Greeks and, you know, and their language and knowledge as well, which was interesting.
Yeah, well, I was asking Gladys about what actually the meaning of decolonization of knowledge, but I got the understanding now. Well, we're talking about engineering knowledge, for example. There is decolonization knowledge. Only certain people knows that knowledge that belongs to them. So why we make it decolonize? We try to make that knowledge accessible for other people to access it, not only from what you said about the low income or high income. Everybody has access to knowledge. And then the answer of the Cesar said, technology, I think is the way to do that, so that people have access to technology. And then by doing that, of course, the technology has to be as cheap as possible. It depends where the country is actually originated. Australia is a rich country, so we can afford to have that big bandwidth to get best internet connection. I'm not sure about Africa, probably yes. So we need to make that happening so that that knowledge is accessible for everybody. And then we need to also make young people to be interested in engaging to other people, the seniority of people, the mentoring process, so that that knowledge can be dispersed to everybody to get it. And then, of course, make it in written documentation, also very good. But again, the tacit knowledge is the most important one, because storytelling is also the way of people sharing their knowledge to other people, and then document it so other people can put it in the database, repository, through the internet, through social media, talk with them. And the language, we talk about English language, where we learn about English is very rich language. We understand more in English than in other language. But we talk about the origination of language. It goes back to Greek, Socrates, Plato, and all that. Aristotle. So if you're going to go back to them. So my take is that, yeah, it's an interesting topic. And I'm sure that a lot of branches that we can do from this decolonization knowledge of knowledge. I can't say decolonization is too hard.
No, thank you, Ricky. I was just sorry, I didn't really join any of your rooms, but I've been thinking in the 10 minutes you had, I've been thinking on my experience. And one of the things about also listen to all of your themes is, I think that I've been discussing with my partner lately is the Western individualistic view on the world versus some of the Southeast Asian or other cultures where is the group mentality, whereas it's the village that has the knowledge, it's the community that has the knowledge, and you know who to go over to ask. And it's not that you as a person, as an individual, needs to know everything. It's who you connect with in your small sphere of collectiveness. And that's really something, yeah, my partner and I have been discussing very much lately, and we have had great discussions about it, because it's a really interesting minefield to discuss and go through. When you go through and see the lens, try to understand the lens through an individual, in work, like combining the two, which is almost impossible. So yeah, it's really interesting field to talk about the decolonization of knowledge, and how you can make sure that as many people get along with it, or at least get touched by it, instead of just having a few sitting mandating, and especially also through which language we use.
And interestingly, Simon, you were talking there about the collective cultures. That's something that I became starkly aware of in China. I had a sort of a knowledge of the collective versus individualistic aspect before I went there, but an aspect of it that I wasn't aware of until I actually participated in the society was that collective culture extends to the way in which Chinese companies, and indeed the Chinese government itself, engages with stakeholders and customers, and the way in which they use the knowledge of that collective customer body or collective community body in their decision making. And I think we talk about removing the bias, the global north bias that we have. It's not just about removing ideas that we impose from the global north on the global south, but it's going to the extent of actually saying, well, there's things that we can learn from the global south about the better use of knowledge. So I think we need to actually remove this fundamental mental barrier that underpins a lot of this, that the idea that the way in which we do things is better, when in fact often it's not. And for example, in Australia, if we look at our environmental management, we're the worst in the world now, according to a recent UN report in regard to climate change action, and we're the second worst in the world with regard to biodiversity conservation. China actually does a lot better on both of those issues. So yeah, I think we really need to have a fundamental shift in our underpinning attitudes that sees what we do in the global north as being better.
Yeah. Thank you.
Simon,
sorry.
can I just add a couple of points there? Just things going through my head when the last 3 or 4 people have spoken. 3 quick points, and then a link between those back to KM4Dev from my observation, which is incomplete, of course. Bruce was mentioning, this assumptions about knowledge, and one of the greatest examples of this is, when Westerners arrived on the shores of Australia. And, you know, they come with a couple of 100 years of technology and then presumed to tell the Australian Indigenous people how to live in their own land, where they had been living sustainably for 60,000 years, the longest living culture on Earth. And there's this real arrogance about, well, we're knowledgeable and we know, and you're a bunch of savages. And, you know, it's like, you know, just so stupid, you know, to assume that you know better than other people. You know, why aren't we asking people what they know and to see how we can bring the knowledge points together? But that's one of the points that I think is often made. And just the connection to the Chinese or collective cultures, one of the fundamental parts of Chinese society is Guangxi, which is the literally two old characters, which translated roughly means connection and relationship. And, you know, it's about society, and you know, companies talk about how much Guangxi they've got, how much influence in the network have they got. And that's why they will connect with each other in a way that is mutually beneficial, which makes it more sustainable. So, you know, it's this idea of knowledge flow amongst trusted partners in order to create value for the wider community, rather than what can I get from this community. And that, I think, is the beautiful thing that I observe about KM4Dev. You know, there's a huge amount of whatever the language refers to as Guangxi, and there's a huge amount of mutual respect amongst the people. You know, they are openly and willingly, trustingly sharing knowledge and information and ideas and contributing to the community. And that's really why I was very keen to hear you guys come and participate here, because you've been contributing and listening on your own session, which is just proving my point. Anyway, I'll shut up. But it's such a beautiful society. And if you haven't been part of KM4Dev, I really strongly recommend that you do so. And I'm sorry I'm not there more often, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any last comments? Otherwise, I'll stop the recording and let Amanda talk about next month. No, oh, Sarah.
Just want to thank Arthur for his very kind words, and I put the link to our discussion group in the chat if you'd like to. If any of you'd like to join us, you'd be very, very welcome. You'd be very, very welcome to. Thanks a lot, and thank you very much for this session, and to Gladys, of course. That's it. Thanks.